Alright, welcome to another MTG Challengers. Today we have this matchup. This is Mono Green Devotion versus Temur Monsters. We have Evan on the left and Matthew on the right.
Yeah, this is it's a pretty interesting matchup because a lot of people have noted it's kind of a mirror matchup because they do play a lot of similar cards. It's both of them are monsters decks, so it's gonna be pretty interesting how this plays out. Let's see, which is it going to be the more consistent deck that comes out on top, mono green, or is it going to be the more versatile one, the Temur? So, yeah.
I definitely like this matchup. It's always interesting to watch.
All right, mono green rolls an 8, or Temur rolls an 8, and
let's see. Move to the opening hands. I really like the Temur Monsters in this matchup. I think it's really versatile. It's got cards that do a lot of work against the mono green deck, such as Xenagos, Stormbreath Dragon, and Crater's Claw.
Yeah, Stormbreath Dragon's, I think, the biggest advantage for this deck.
I think so, especially if you can land one early enough to monstrous it. Okay, we got Evan Mulligan.
All right, I will keep this hand.
Yeah, what I like about the Temur deck especially is that it can both play Stormbreath and it can actually ramp into it with things like Sylvan Caryatid and stuff. So getting out like a turn 4 Stormbreath Dragon's a pretty solid play for Temur over here.
It looks like he has that possibility, starting with a 3-lander with 2 Sylvan Caryatids and 2 Courser Crucifix in his
mono
hand.
green, mulls to 6. Let's see if he's gonna take this one. Yeah, I don't see a single land in there. Yeah, looks like he's gonna go to 5. So mono green already at a pretty serious disadvantage, being down 2 cards.
Let's see if he can make it up. An easy way to make up your card disadvantage in a matchup like this is to stick your early game Courser Crucifix.
Yeah.
And get a couple land out of it, then you're right back where you started, essentially.
And both of these decks are playing Courser, right?
Both of them, yes.
So that's another sort of mirror aspect.
Definitely. It gives a significant advantage for the extra card out of the deck, but you also have the disadvantage of your opponent seeing every card that you draw as you draw it.
Right, so most 5. I think Courser is one of the biggest reasons why going first is really important for this matchup. Is just whoever gets their Courser out first is going to be pretty ahead.
Oh, and there's the card we talked about. He draws first card Stormbreath Dragon.
Gets a turn 1 Scry. You leave it on top, I believe. Yeah. All right, second Forest passes. Let's see.
Here we go. He's going to get a nice turn 2 mana accelerator. Just depends on which one he wants. I think the Caryatid's probably the better choice.
All right, gets an untapped without having to pay the life, so that's nice. So he's got 3 land over there. And plays a 3rd forest. And
mono green gets an
accelerant of its own.
Yes.
In this case, Voyaging Satyr, which is going to be really useful if he can get the Nykthos, because those 2 cards really play nice together.
Very good combination there with the untapped target land.
Yeah.
It's a very good effect with the Nykthos. It's with kind of what makes this deck roll on its own.
Yeah. So the original mono green, whenever Theros first came out, people were getting like 137 Mistcutter Hydras and stuff.
Yeah.
That's ridiculous.
That's definitely what you go. What you go for.
He gets played a basic mountain. I was going to play Courser, which I believe he played that mountain before the Courser.
He played the mountain before the Coursers,
which kind of a little bit of a misplay there.
Yes, possibly a misplay. He could have gained that life.
He wouldn't have been able to filter any land because he did reveal another Stormbreath, but he could have gained an extra life. So he plays another forest and casts Nissa.
Nice. That's a turn 4 Nissa.
So
that's a good effect.
Use +1 to untap, or not.
Oh,
he makes
he decides he wants the 4/4. He's going to make his forest a 4/4.
Kind of an interesting decision there. What does he have in his hand? Genesis Hydra.
He's got a Genesis Hydra and a Hornet Queen.
Yeah.
Okay, kind of a nasty spot here. You got the Temur Monsters just revealed after the Stormbreath, a Saruk Dragon Claw.
Yeah, so he's got double Stormbreath in hand. Temur is in a really good spot with creatures right now.
really good spot, but he kind of needed that extra land to come up off the top.
Yeah.
Now he's sitting with the same amount of land he had last turn, and missed land drops usually don't go well.
Oh yeah, he only has 4. I thought that Courser was a Mandorg somehow. But he goes for the Rattleclaw Mystic and another Caryatid.
Good play. It's a good play.
Now he's going to swing for 2 at Nissa.
He opens up his land. Since he's not drawing them, playing out the other 2 mana accelerators from his hand is a really good option.
Yeah, yeah.
And we got another land just came down on the mono green side, which is going to make a very effective play here. He can play either one of the cards in his hand for a very significant effect. See, he's tapping 4, and he'll +1 his Nissa.
To untap, add 4 again, so...
And,
Or at 3.
So he's going 7,
for
and he's
Hornet
going
Queen.
for the Hornet Queen effect.
Alright, getting 4 tokens, right?
4 tokens, and everything
Man,
has
Hornet
Death
Queen's
Touch.
good. I love the flavor of Hornet Queen too. Like her little Hornets follow her, and they have Death Touch if they sting you.
Yes.
Getting some Yu-Gi-Oh tokens over there.
Definitely one of the better cards, not only in the deck but in the format.
Probably the best high drop in the format right now. At least one of them.
I would almost agree, except with the exceptions of some of the Planeswalkers. I would say Hornet Queen is almost the most valuable.
Second to
top
Garrett,
drop.
maybe.
Second to Garrick, or second to maybe Resolute Archangel.
Yeah.
It's for its effect at least. It's very overpowered.
So swinging with the 4/4 elemental, decides to take it.
All right, now let's see what we have come across the table here with the monsters.
Archangel's pretty much like the best possible card against the burn deck.
Definitely. Resolute Archangel.
Because it resets your life and it just blocks Mantis Riders all day.
Yes. It's definitely big enough for the Mantis Rider to never get through, so they'll stop attacking with the Mantis Rider. Unless, of course, they go into a burn spell, which they'll try to bluff you out with. You'll be able to see it coming.
Alright, so he has a Temple of Abandon on top. I'm not sure why he hasn't played it yet.
Well, at least he's finally gotten to another land.
Yeah.
You know, he's already down 2 land drops against the mono green deck, which is bad enough already.
He really needs to get some kind of presence in the air right now, but he would just be sacrificing his dragons is the problem.
Well, he's got 6 mana, so we can see he can play every card in his hand if he chooses. He's got the Polykranos in his hand, which if he had more land, I would say to just play the Polykranos and try to monstrous it for as much as possible.
Yeah. Alright, plays it from the top, revealing...
Shows his Xenagos.
Looks like he's going to keep that on top.
Definitely can't hurt his situation right now, making more mana. He can at least play 2 cards from his hand now, maybe than rather the 1 that he would have been able to play before.
He's doing some math here, seeing what he can do.
He definitely sees that he can only play 1 card from his hand.
Nice.
It's just a choice of which card does he want now.
He's going to play Polykranos.
4 mana, that's the Polykranos.
There it goes.
Which I would say is probably the best choice here.
Yeah, he can do Xenagos next turn, make some mana and monstrous it off, and just pick off the tokens. He'll die in the process because it does deal damage to him. Any damage dealt by the Death Touch is lethal, but just to get those tokens out of the way, it's probably a worthy trade-off.
Absolutely, but yeah, you're right. With the wording of Polykranos' monstrous effect, they deal the damage to each other. So Death Touch will kill the Polykranos.
It's not combat damage, it's any damage for Death Touch.
Absolutely. But
a lot of people forget about that part.
It's still a relevant play, I think.
Yeah. Alright, he's going to Genesis Hydra.
Ooh.
Looks like he untapped and then did it again for 8.
I think 8 or 9? 7.
7
is a good number still. Let's see what he can land. There's a Nylea.
So he gets a non-land
or an Arbor Colossus. Oh, wow.
Nylea, Hornet Queen, or Arbor Colossus. That's in a pretty good spot.
I think the tables just turned. I don't think there's any coming out of this for the Rogue Monsters.
He chooses the Hornet Queen. Really, really great comeback from the mono green side, mulling to 5.
Absolutely. With a mull to 5 and hitting the Nissa so early, he's without the ability to kill the Nissa immediately, he just secured himself this win.
Yeah. I'm not sure. I might have chosen the... Do you think he chose right with the other Hornet Queen? I might have chosen the Nylea, actually.
I don't think he can produce enough mana without the Nykthos for Nylea to
Yeah,
have been a relevant choice. I think he knows that there are two or at least he knows there's one Storm Breath in Matthew's hand. So giving himself more of a flying presence is just as adequate of a play as choosing the Arbor Colossus or the Nylea. But this also gives him serious pressure with no flyers to block. This will almost assuredly win him the game.
Alright, so he's going to swing out with the first pair of Hornet Queens.
So that's a total of 6 flying damage that
And
Matthew is forced to take. He has no blockers in the air. Okay, let's see if he can hit another land after the Xenagos. Oh, it's not. It's
another Dragon Claw, which he really doesn't need.
Oh, definitely
right
not.
now.
With one in his hand already, he needed land in this situation.
He's in a really rough spot right now. Definitely.
Let's see. The way I see it, he can produce 8 mana after playing Xenagos. And then he could do a Monstrous for 3 on the Polychronos, which could be effective. Or if he can wait until next turn and try to do it for even more damage. But, he just took 6. He's going to take 12 more if Evan's to swing out with all of the flyers.
Right.
He could be totally out of position if he can't get rid of any of these flying tokens.
Definitely. Looks like he's thinking about...
He's definitely deciding what the play is. Does he go with the Storm Breath? I mean, what does he do? He's already went ahead and produced his mana with Xenagos.
I think so. He has 8 mana total, or 8 mana.
He has
able to be.
He has a possibility for 8 mana across the board.
So he could only Monsters right now. Polychronos for 3 at the moment.
That would be the most he could do.
Yeah, but he's tapping Rattleclaw.
He's actually gone to play the Saruk here. There's the Dragon Claw.
Interesting choice.
I think he sees that the flying is too much. The Storm Breath wouldn't be worth the play, I don't think. The only thing Storm Breath would be good for would be just to block a Hornet Queen.
Yeah.
We'll see. We'll see how he turns
Storm Breath. This is a very defensive situation for Temur at the moment. Storm Breath is really much more of an offensive creature with the haste, but if he just rammed it in there, it would not be a very good trade-off for him.
Not at all. I wouldn't think so. But at least if he can survive this next turn, he's got 1 extra creature on the board, which will allow Xenagos to plus for 1 more damage if it's not destroyed by then. Well, pardon me, 1 more mana, not 1 more damage. But that would help him to Polychronos for a much higher effect. He could potentially wipe out, the large majority of the flyers, if not all of them.
Really taking his time here, thinking about this play.
Yes, by my count, he has the availability to make 11 mana with Xenagos' effect.
Now, which in his defense, Temur Monsters is a pretty difficult deck to play. Really, it's the basic concept of mono green, but there's a lot more complexity with the Xenagos and everything.
Yes, there's more complexity with your added colors and your multicolored lands. It's not quite as simple as playing mono green, but you still have to worry about your sequencing just as much.
Yeah.
These 2 decks really are about all the math involved going into each play. How can I output the most damage? How can I produce the most mana for the turn?
Yeah.
That's how you play these decks.
So use Nisa's +1 to get another 4/4 elemental. Plays it Sylvan Caryatid, so yeah, he's definitely got a pretty good amount of mana at this point.
At this point, mono green's not worried about anything unless he draws into like 4 or 5 more forests in a row.
Yeah.
But again, unless the Polychronos can destroy all of the flying tokens, I think this game is just about done with.
Yeah.
Evan's deciding his attackers, not sure if he can get the lethal amount, trying to figure out what's going on here. He decides to attack with all of the flyers except for 1 Hornet Queen. Let's see. Is that going to be all that he attacks with? Looks like it. And that was lethal damage.
Yep. It reveals his hand, showing he doesn't have anything. And yeah, that was a pretty decisive game for the mono green side.
I would say so. Even with the mulligan to 5, he managed to turn it around. He sequenced well with the Nissa, just at the right time to land in an early game Hornet Queen. Because even with that effect, playing the Nissa on turn 4, he went turn 5 Hornet Queen.
Yeah.
Which the deck can do much better, but that's still just early enough to be quite dangerous.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely.
Now we move to sideboarding.
Yeah, it looks like mono green's probably going to want the mist cutters.
I think you take both mist cutters for this.
Yeah.
Even though this deck only plays a few blue creatures, you definitely want as many as you can get.
Yeah, he's going to be protected from the Dragon Claws and as well as...
Savage Knuckleblade.
Mm-hmm.
Protection from the Savage Knuckleblade.
I'm almost certain the Temur's deck is going to side in Disdainful Strokes, which Mistcutter Hydra is a great card against that.
I definitely would board in the Disdainful Stroke. There's a huge percentage of the mono green deck that is higher than 4.
So you can, if you do Mistcutter for enough, that's the mana cost, right? It's not just one.
Yeah, when X is on the stack, whatever you pay is
all right, so
how it adds
stroke,
up.
Yeah.
Disdainful Stroke would work if the Mistcutter wasn't protected. I got Matthew still shuffling his deck over here, thinking through all of his sideboard choices, making sure his deck's well randomized. He really didn't get a good mix in that first hand.
Not at all. Not at all.
Evan's already pulled his sideboard cards. He's looking to board in the 2 Mistcutter Hydras as well as an extra Hornet Queen. We'll see what else he continues to bring in. In this matchup, Matthew should go with... Disdainful Strokes if he's got them. Anger of the Gods if he's got them. Looking here, he's got Unravel the Aethers, Nylea's Disciples. Even a Negate might be effective with the Nissas involved.
Mm-hmm.
You've also got Court of Calling. See here, we see the Anger of the Gods and the Disdainful Strokes.
It's a great part about Temur is that having blue gives you really good side options for counter spells.
As well as red. The Anger of the Gods is just an incredible card to deal with the mono green deck.
Yeah, he gets rid of all the Mandorks and doesn't get rid of Courser. That's pretty unfortunate.
Unfortunately, that's why Courser is so valued in this format.
But he can get negates to counter the See the Unwrittens, which could be pretty valuable.
I agree, definitely. He's already pulled all the cards we said. Negate, Disdainful Stroke, Anger of the Gods. I don't really see much else being helpful.
Yeah.
Now it's time for him to pick the cards that come out. And Evan's also going to bring in Hunt the Hunter. It's a very valuable card.
Mm-hmm.
Specifically, like we said, in a matchup that's essentially considered a mirror match,
Mm-hmm.
where just about every creature that Matthew's going to play is at least part green.
Right.
So you can target it with the Hunt the Hunter.
Absolutely. Do you think one of the plays might be to side out a couple dragons on the Temur side? Because the protection from white really is not doing a whole lot, and it's a pretty bad matchup against Hornet Queen.
Just about everything's a bad matchup against Hornet Queen.
Yeah, that's true.
That's why Anger of the Gods is not only good, but
right.
necessary for this matchup. He's going to bring in the Anger of the Gods. It might be worthwhile to board out maybe one Stormbreath Dragon.
Mm-hmm.
And just keep all the Paul Kranos in.
Mm-hmm.
I think Paul Kranos does just as much work in this matchup as the Stormbreath Dragon. He's still deciding. Looks like he's taking out a little bit of everything. Looked like some one-ofs coming out. He took out a Savage Knuckleblade, I saw.
Yeah, I think that's probably the hardest portion of sideboarding is deciding what to take out. Basically, looks like he's sort of doing a strategy similar to me, which is it's pretty easy to tell what's going to work in your sideboard to put in. But if you're in doubt about what to take out from your main deck, just take as few chances as possible and side out a bunch of one-ofs. Like if you have four Stormbreath, 4 Polykranos, all that, just take out one of each at least. That's you retain consistency, you still have a pretty good chance of getting those cards if they're good, and if not, you really haven't, hurt yourself by taking out all of one card or another.
I agree. I think that's at least a good idea to roll with, because it is hard to decide what to sideboard out. I find myself in similar situations, and I think you either go with your plan, where you get rid of something that you may not need all 4 of, so it's worth at least trying it down to 3, or if you have the cards that you know are just no good in that matchup, you just take them out.
Right.
So, for example, I can't think of any totally dead cards for Matthew to take out, but, maybe it would be worth it to take out, say, maybe 2 Rattle Claws if you're pulling into a much more effective card.
Yeah.
I don't think you lose Polychronos in this matchup. I think it's too valuable. But
yeah, it is. It's one of the, well, at least game 1, it's one of the only decks, pretty much the only option the deck has against the Hornet Queen. In game 2, obviously there's the Anger of the Gods, which is definitely going to be pretty valuable in that.
Oh, it's going to be very valuable. The card is so effective. Matthew's decided his full board. He's started shuffling. Evan's deck is cut and ready to go. Well, let's see if he can keep a 7-card hand this time rather than 5.
Hopefully.
Might just give him an even faster matchup.
But at least according to game 1, consistency seems to be beating out the Temur deck right now.
So far, I would.
Of course, that versatility is definitely going to come into play in the game 2 because of the sideboard, though. I think that could be a pretty good point of contention.
I think, really, as far as versatility goes, you're right. It's only really valuable for game 2 and 3, where you get your sideboard options. Other than that, your game 1, really all you gain from your versatility is just like a handful of options and a handful of larger creatures than normal. For example, you have Savage Knuckleblade, which is just as good as Polychronos. You go with a 3 mana for a 4/4, where Polychronos is a 4 mana for 5/5. You're getting value without any effects already, because that large of a creature for that cost of mana is already exceptional.
Cutting each other's decks. They are getting ready to go. Both draw their 7. And look, Temur is going to be on the play for this one, I assume. And on the mono green side, looks like he's got a couple forests and a Nykthos, but it's like getting a mulligan.
The Temur Monsters looks like it has a great opening hand. He's got the 2 mana, he's got a Rattleclaw Mystic, he's got a Courser. So you're going to go with the go-to play. You're going to try to stick in that turn 3 Courser and try to get a land off the top of the deck automatically.
Definitely.
He's also got a Sylvan Caryatid and a Disdainful Stroke, where that Disdainful Stroke will be very valuable in about turn 4 or 5 slot.
Looks like mono green's going to go to 5 again. Not really sure if it's gonna come out on top for him again.
Well, if he can land a hand with just as good of sequencing as the last turn, where he had nothing but small amounts of mana, and then he had the Nissa, which loaded him into the Genesis Hydra and the Hornet Queen. They're both very valuable, and this hand is just as bad.
Yeah, not a single source of green. He has an Elvish Mystic, but he only has a Nykthos. But it looks like he's going to take it.
He's going to keep it. I think it...
Going to 4 is going to be really bad. Oh! Wow, he lucked out there.
Very good draw.
Yeah.
He absolutely needed the one green source.
So he's on tempo, definitely.
So he's better than on tempo. He's got a Hunt the Hunter in his hand.
Oh, yeah.
Which, if Matthew makes a play of Rattleclaw Mystic, then it's just going to disappear. He's going to Hunt the Hunter, fight it. Yeah. Now, if Matthew were to play the Sylvan Caryatid here, he would be safe. Oh,
almost
he does. He plays the Rattleclaw. Let's see.
So, I mean, Temur's already got all its colors. So really pretty set in that regard.
I think
he gets another forest. He's really ripping those draws right now.
Oh, and he does. He plays the Hunt the Hunter
to get the
+2/+2 and make it fight another green creature that your opponent controls.
Really putting Temur down in terms of speed.
It definitely will. It'll
even though it's on the play this game, Mono Green's already ahead in terms of mana, and then he gets him for 3.
And he's still got a Nykthos in his hand. If he can draw into a Voyaging Satyr or Sylvan Caryatid, he can make that Hornet Queen and that Genesis Hydra pop up very quick.
Yeah, so it looks like to be on track for another really decisive win for Mono Green over here. But let's see.
I think if he can land either one of his mana accelerators, turn in a Genesis Hydra for maybe 4, 5, 3, whatever the effect he can get, maximum mana. That'll produce him enough devotion to trigger Nykthos for a reasonable amount to land Hornet Queen on the follow-up turn.
Yeah.
We got Matthew here still trying to decide his line of play.
He dropped down a mountain.
He can't play his Courser.
Right, he only has the mystery for single green.
So his line of play will be one of 2 options: either play the Caryatid or hold up the Disdainful Stroke. He goes into the Caryatid.
Probably the better of the 2, I would say.
I would agree, but I think he could have avoided a lot of trouble if he had made the safer play by playing Caryatid as the mana accelerator for turn 2.
Right.
See, at this point, Evan's going to pass.
Right, because it couldn't have been targeted.
Evan's going to pass. The Genesis Hydra for 2 just doesn't look as
not very good
effective as
value.
maybe next turn for 3. Now Matthew has the potential to play the Savage Knuckleblade or the Paul Kranos if he so decides. Courser would probably be his best interest right now.
Yeah.
Try to catch up on land. That way he can maybe monstrous his Storm Breath as quick as possible while Evan still has cards. But he passes.
There goes the Nykthos.
Alright, let's see. He has a possible amount of mana of 5. He can Chord for 2 or he can Genesis Hydra for 3. Cording for 2 is probably the more effective play, but again, if that's his line of play, he doesn't have to do it now.
He just passes, and Matthew rips an Anger of the Gods, which not very good right now, but when he starts getting the Hornet Queens, he's definitely going to want to save that one.
Okay. He decides now to go into the play
of Courser?
Courser.
Yeah.
Very good. Alright, let's see.
Yeah. And he
And
gets
he gets the land.
Great play.
Gaining 1 life and keeping himself caught up.
He reveals another Caryatid.
Not bad. Not as good as land, but it's not bad either. And he does. He makes the chord of 2.
Wait, 2? Yeah.
Disdainful Strokes. He's got to take 1 to do it off the Shivan Reef, but he stops his acceleration at least as much as possible. Taps for 5. Arbor Colossus.
Arbor Colossus.
Now that would be a problem.
Yeah, very good because if he gets, I believe he does have a dragon in his hand right now. Arbor Colossus just kind of laughs at that card. Let's see if he gets Dragon Claw, so no land from the Courser.
Land, so he's stuck with only 5 mana. If he's got 5 mana, his sequencing here should be to play the Caryatid and then the Knuckleblade.
Yeah.
That way he loads up his board as much as possible for a possible Xenagos off the top.
Yeah, but that Colossus is making the Stormbreath Dragon not very appealing at the moment.
He has the colors. He could play the Knuckleblade and the Caryatid without fail.
Okay, let's see. He's got 3 mana right there.
Producing a blue,
No, it's not.
I believe, off the Shivan Reef. Taking 1. And the Knuckleblade.
Yep.
Okay.
And this is a colorless.
And he
Very
plays
good, very good.
Caryatid.
He sequences his play well. He goes
Yeah.
into the Caryatid, gives him a loaded board. Still doesn't do much against the Arbor Colossus, but again, the play for Evan wasn't as much of making a threatening creature. It was producing as much devotion on the table as he can.
Definitely.
So that the Nykthos is going to be better.
Yeah, then
for the
Nykthos
Hornet
is
Queen.
just a ticking time bomb until He just needs to get out some more devotion.
See,
right now he's at 4, so he can actually do it right now profitably, just for 1.
Just for 1. He drew into a Caryatid where he needed the land to play the Hornet Queen.
Yeah.
So he's going to delay at least 1 more turn. The option here is just, does he play the Caryatid or does he play a Genesis Hydra?
He's just got 5 mana right now with the Nykthos open. Or 6, actually.
6 mana, just 1 short of the Hornet Queen.
Yeah.
But with 6 mana, he can Genesis Hydra.
Let's go for 2 for Caryatid.
Caryatid. Okay, so his line of play is to get the Hornet Queen down next turn.
Yeah.
Let's see what this does for him.
Pass it back.
He does not attack with the Colossus because it would die in trade to the Courser and the and the Savage Knuckleblade.
Yeah, that 4 toughness on the Coursers. Pretty good.
Good. He gets an extra land.
Another one.
Gains 1. He
looks another one.
He looks to scry, but he's got to show the card before he scries. The
right.
The way of Courser's ability works, he's got to show it all the time. As soon as he draws it, next card's got to show.
I was thinking about what he wants to do with that Epiphany on there, which I believe is the only one in the deck. Let's see.
It's definitely the off color for Epiphany, blue-red. The deck is primarily green, so you would want your Temple of Mysteries and your Temple of Abandons more than the Epiphany.
Yeah.
He's trying to decide. He's got a handful of creatures, and he's not sure if he can stick them.
Yeah, he's really got plenty of blue at the moment. So he sends that to the bottom, gets another Rattleclaw at the top.
He's got plenty of red as well. He's got 2 red sources of mana that won't hurt him, as well as 2 Caryatids. So he doesn't need to take any pain from the Shivan Reefs right now.
Those Caryatids make it a lot easier. Well, let's see what he does here.
He's got a possibility for 6 mana. As far as sequencing goes, he doesn't have 2 options. So at this point, he could play just whichever creature fits his fancy. The Polykranos, the Stormbreath, or the Dragonclaw. Any of the above are good.
I might go with the Polykranos personally, because if he plays the dragon, then Colossus could destroy it with the Monstrous. But
agree.
I agree. Yeah, he goes with the dragon.
Goes with the dragon. It's not a bad play again. He's gonna at least bait out a Monstrous effect with the Arbor Colossus. And he attacks. And Evan realizes that the Arbor Colossus has reach. Evan is not going to take the bait and just take 4. He realizes, I have reach. I can block it.
It looks like a little bit of a forgetfulness on the part of Matthew.
At least a misplay. We'll see if he can recover from it.
Yeah.
Also, there's the potential that he could have been baiting out the answer.
Yeah, and he did only have the Caryatid for the mana, though.
We'll see. We'll see.
Yeah.
I think, at the very least, maybe he had the idea that he could be trying to put this Hornet Queen onto the table. He could have been saying, hey, I don't have a flyer. Go ahead and slam down your Hornet Queen.
Looks like he wants...
He's got this Anger of the Gods. He knows it's relevant. He's waiting for the right time.
Yeah, he's waiting for that one.
He could have already cut off all the acceleration from Evan by taking out the Mystic and the Sylvan Caryatid.
Yeah, looks like he's going to Nykthos. 1, 2, 4, 5, 6.
6 mana. So he's just got to tap 1 more.
So he taps 1 more for 7.
And here comes the Hornet Queen.
There comes the Hornet Queen.
I think at this point, Matthew probably wants to just get up and dance. He realizes...
he just wants to do the anger at this point.
He realizes the Anger of the Gods is going to get him so much value right here.
It will get rid of all of his Caryatids, and the Knuckleblade's a 3/3 as well, right?
Knuckleblade's a 4/4.
4/4.
So with his relevant creatures, they'll survive and last through, and the Arbor Colossus will survive on it.
Yeah, Evan's going to lose everything except the Colossus. He'll still have the Courser and everything, so it's definitely the best value play for him right now. He's going to swing with the Colossus.
And he blocks with the Knuckleblade. Not necessarily a good idea, but again, Arbor Colossus is 6 damage.
Yeah.
And plays his land. Gains a life. That's a good move. Shows another land. Maybe not what he wants at this exact moment, but it can't really hurt him.
Right.
And he knows the line of play. He goes straight to tap the Caryatids for the mana because they're going to die. There's the Anger of the Gods.
See Evan just react to that a little bit.
For just about the best value I've ever seen one played for.
Yeah, there goes pretty much the whole board except 2 creatures. Of course, still not in the best place possible with just that Courser against that Colossus, but
Let's see.
a lot better off than he used to be.
So he has 5 mana. He can flash in a Dragon Claw to block the Colossus
really wise,
on the next turn, or he can play Paul Kranos or the Rattleclaw.
A really wise mana play, tapping both the Caryatids that were going to die anyway, so that actually frees up 2 more lands on the side of Matthew.
Absolutely. It gives him just enough that he has this open Dragon Claw in his hand that he can just flash in, which is going to be even more valuable if Evan attacks with this Colossus, because then he makes an even trade and says, my board is now instantly better than yours because I have a Paul Kranos and I'm going to play from my
And he cannot
hand.
respond with the monsters at this point. He does not have enough mana, so... Looks like he's going to... Well, he shouldn't do it yet, but...
See, at the end of Evan's turn, it looks like he's going to go ahead and flash in this Dragon Claw and give himself board presence.
Yeah. There it goes.
Okay. Now we continue. Untap. Matthew takes his turn, draws his forest.
Forest.
And another land on the top. Even better. It's a scry land. It gives him just that much more value.
That Courser's really cycling him through these lands.
And it's another Courser.
Wow.
That is one of the best things to see.
Looks
on
like
the
that
top
Anger of the
deck.
Gods could have turned around this game for the Temur side.
He's still got a Paul Kranos in hand, and he's hitting all of his land drops now. He's got a land in hand, so he won't miss next turn. If he plays the Paul Kranos and the Rattleclaw, he can sequence out really, really well. And on the following turn, just monstrous for, let's see, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 sources, which would give him a monstrous for 4. Might not be enough to kill anything, but it might be enough to threaten the Arbor Colossus.
3, 4.
Good. He
Gets
plays
that
his
Paul
Paul
Kranos.
Kranos. By far one of the more threatening cards in the entire deck. And
Just a green staple.
he's got 2 open mana. He should play the Rattleclaw here. Even if it takes 1 mana. Yeah, there we go. Takes the damage to do it, but he's not worried about it. He just gained life off of Courser this turn. He's got another land in hand. He knows he's going to gain 1, possibly even 2 life next turn off of just playing a forest from his hand. So he's not worried about taking the pain.
On a green, just staying alive there on 4 lands.
See, he's going to produce 4 mana.
Yeah, 4 mana.
Makes it
looks
5.
like he's going to play the Nisa. Yeah.
Oh.
That comes... probably the play here is to make one an elemental, because he can only untap 3 forests, and he only has the Genesis Hydra. But let's see.
You're probably right. If he could untap the Nykthos, he would be in just a perfect board situation, because the Nissa gives him
looks
even
like he
more.
is untapping.
Let's see. You know, it's always a profitable strategy in Magic to bluff the card in your hand. We know it's a Genesis Hydra. Matthew has no idea.
Right. Because we got this cool camera angle where we can see everything.
Okay, he passes there. He is definitely holding up a bluff. We know he has no card he can trigger during this turn.
Man,
and that
he is
Temple
getting that
again.
value off that Courser.
The Scry lands are just the best land to hit off of a Courser.
And the obvious play for him is to play the Courser and then get the Temple of Abandon on there and gain 2 life, obviously.
Okay, he's going to play the Courser. And now he's going to play his land.
2 life.
He gains his 2.
And gets a Scry.
Alright, let's see what the top card is. Shows a Disdainful Stroke.
I think he's going to want to keep that.
The best part about that is not only is it a threatening enough card, but Evan sees it. He knows what's going to go into Matthew's hand.
Right.
That puts him on the clock. He's got to play whatever he's going to do now, which will be to Genesis Hydra for a massive amount this turn. He can trigger his Nykthos for a total of 6 mana, and he's got 1 other forest he could tap with that, plus the Caryatid, so he can go for a total of 8 mana on this turn without untapping lands with Nissa. He can produce a very large amount.
Yeah.
And it looks like
he kept it on top.
Looks like a monstrous effect for 2.
Effect for 2.
And he is threatening the Colossus. Makes the Paul Kranos just big enough to survive the Colossus. The play here, I think, would be to just go ahead and swing at Nissa and make sure that she dies.
All right, because you really want to keep him on those 4 lands. Nissa's basically allowing him to turn that 4 lands into 7, which, you know, you should keep him. Definitely mono green. Needs to be kept to as little land as possible.
Okay, let's go to.
You know, it does have a fair bit of devotion out there as well. Got 6 right now, but
6.
right, swinging with the Dragon Claw.
7.
Let's see,
7/7 Polycranos.
at this point, Monster Seeing the Polycranos gave him the advantage for right here. See, he's swinging 1 at Nissa and 1 at Evan himself.
Mhm.
So either way, if the Arbocossus were to block either one of these, it would die. The question is, which one does he want more? Does he want the Arbocossus or does he want the Nissa? Still deciding. That's the thought running through his head. Do I want the Colossus or do I want the Nissa? Which one is more valuable with this Genesis Hydra in my hand? He can only... If Arbocossus dies, he only gets to Monstrous for 3. And then if the Nissa dies, he can do the Nykthos for 4. Okay, he decides to block with Caryatid. He might just get to keep both. No, he lets Nissa die. He decides Arbocossus is more important. It's a bigger creature. If he draws a land here, he should have been able to Monstrous it. No, he doesn't even have enough to do that. So his draw of Hunt the Hunter is probably the best thing he could have gotten in this situation. It's going to make the Arbocossus a 8/8 and fight. So Polycranos is going to die.
Really, yeah, pretty solid play there.
But this still puts at least Matthew in a decent position. He's going to draw into this Disdainful Stroke and be able to counter Evan's next play.
Which is, well, going to make Evan hold off on that Genesis Hydra, which, well, Genesis Hydra isn't really a very good value anyway because he just lost basically all of his devotion. So he's back to 4 lands.
And here we go to Matthew's turn. We know he has a forest in his hand, so let's see what shows as the top card after Disdainful Stroke.
Man,
it is
fetch
a
land.
fetch land.
Oh, fetch land, but he still does get the 2 more life.
Now the fetch land is just about the best mechanic with Courser. Because if you don't like what card you see on the top of your deck, you can just fetch to shuffle.
You can fetch the shuffle and another land comes into play, you gain 2 more life.
So effectively in that trade, you gain 2, then you lose 1, and you gain 2 more. So he can go into a chain and gain 3 life for the turn.
Right, so that fetch line's worth 3 life instead of 2.
See, he decides here he doesn't want the temple on the top. He's trying to get to a relevant card. I think still he should have waited and given less knowledge to Evan ahead of time.
Now you normally want to crack the fetch land at the end of their turn, but gain the 2 more life.
Now let's see. He really probably needs maybe another Polycranos here or a Xenagos to give himself board presence, make more tokens with haste, and try to punch through the Arbocossus. He's got 4 creatures, which means if the Arbocossus starts swinging, he can block for a reasonable amount of time. Okay, let's see what the top card shows. The top card shows another temple. He's going to get a scry. He's going to gain 2 more life.
Yeah, the coursers are just doing so much work for them right now.
It's not the card he wants. You know by his hand and the board presence, he needs another creature.
Right.
He doesn't want to swing with the Dragon Claw and trade with the Colossus, because then he's down in board presence. He's got 1 threatening creature right now, and he needs to keep it.
Looks like he's going to swing for that.
And Evan can't afford to lose his only creature, so he's going to take the 6 damage.
Another Nykthos.
Another Nykthos. That's absolutely a worthless card in this situation.
Yeah.
See, because he can only produce 3 mana and then play the Nykthos. He won't be able to truly profit out of it, but he can at least make his Genesis Hydra bigger than it already is. Let's see, he can trigger Nykthos for 3, add his 4th mana to the pool, play the Nykthos, drain 2 of it to activate the Nykthos again for another 3 and go up to 5.
Yeah.
Not really worth losing the Nykthos for, but he may need it.
You gotta do what you gotta do if you have no other options.
He's in a very desperate situation. He's doing the math himself, figuring out what I just stated, that he can only produce a total of 5, which would only give him a Genesis Hydra for 3 valuable targets, would only be a Mana Accelerator or a Courser. He has no other targets of 3 or less. He also realizes that if he were to cast his Genesis Hydra for more than 1x, it can be disdainfully stroked, and then he won't get to keep that creature on the board. He'll get to get whatever creature he targets out of the top that he reveals, but not the Genesis Hydra.
Definitely.
Yeah, good.
Let's make this interesting.
Okay.
Looks like Matthew's doing a little bit of the same math on the opposite side.
Make those.
Alright, so looks like he's doing exactly what we said.
Activate Nykthos.
Playing the Nykthos, activating it.
Genesis Hydra for 3.
So, he's going to do the Genesis Hydra for 3.
Mm-hmm.
Matthew tells him, hang on, I want to decide if I want to counter this. It looks like he's going to do it. Disdainfully strokes the Genesis Hydra.
Yeah.
Evan tells him he's still going to get the trigger. So, oh, and he shows the best card for the value.
Yeah, right there.
Which, not only is it worthwhile for the show the top card and get a free land, it's the same devotion as the Genesis Hydra. So he doesn't really lose in that trade. I'd almost even say he comes out on top.
Yeah, if there's one thing the mono green deck needs right now, it's just more lands.
It also gives him an extra creature to block this Dragon Claw, because without the ability to monstrous the Arbor Colossus, he's going nowhere.
But that takes him back up to a 5 devotion.
Which is good enough to play the Arbor Colossus that's on the top of the deck now.
Yeah.
Matthew's sitting in a situation where he doesn't have any relevant cards. He's going to draw into a land for the turn, and then he's going to be only able to attack with the Dragon Claw. He still needs board presence. Maybe not a Storm Breath, but he needs something.
So he's going to swing and chumps with the Rattleclaw Mystic.
Now, I would say that was probably a bad block. He could have gotten rid of that Arbor Colossus by blocking with both Coursers and the Rattleclaw. He didn't have the ability to monstrous it. He could have dealt 6 damage to it and would have only lost 1 more creature than he did. He would have traded a Courser and Rattleclaw for an Arbor Colossus, which would have still left Matthew in the better board state at this situation.
Showing a Storm Breath on top of his library, which
would have given him an even better situation if one of those Arbor Colossus weren't there.
Alright, but even now, with all the mana he has, he could play it and then set it out for 1 turn, then monstrous it off for 7/7.
Yes, Matthew only has 10 mana. He needs 2 more to be able to monstrous it within the same turn.
Right.
Okay, here comes the Arbor Colossus. He's activating Nykthos for 5. Now this puts Matthew on the right in a much worse position. That Storm Breath is going to be completely worthless now. He has to play the Mountain. Gains 2. Again, not only digging through the deck, but giving himself an extra 2 life every land that hits the table is helping him survive longer.
Yeah. Really, game's quite has very much slowed down at this point.
Yeah, at the beginning you had all the mana accelerators that were killed out by the anger of the gods, and now we've moved to essentially a battle of who can top deck the more relevant card. And at this point, the Arbor Colossus just won that battle. He knows the Storm Breath is across the table, and at this point you really don't care, because when Evan untaps, he's going to have the available mana to monstrous an Arbor Colossus. Which may have put this as a really bad play for Matthew. He's going to play the Storm Breath anyway. He realizes that he can't Monstrous it this turn. He would have to wait one more turn. And even then, with no cards in Evan's hand, the Monstrous effect on Storm Breath won't be relevant because Arbor Colossus will become a 9/9 when it Monstrous. As well as just being able to.
Looks like he realizes that he's gonna restart that play and think about it.
Got a straight to combat. 6.
You're gonna try and knock off one of the bosses, but chooses to trade the Caryatid.
To trade the
or not trade, just chump with the Caryatid, which I'm not sure if that was the wisest choice.
Okay, now he decides to go ahead and play the Storm Breath.
Yeah.
I don't think he realizes it's still going to die this turn.
Right, because Arbor Colossus is not white, so that Storm Breath is not protected from that monstrous ability.
Well, with Storm Breath being... With knowing Storm Breath is going to die off the monstrous effect, Matthew has the land on the table with playing a land for next turn. He has the available mana to play the Storm Breath and monstrous it the following turn.
Right.
What should have happened was he should have waited for Evan to go through his turn, see if he monstrous before he attacked with an Arbor Colossus. If he could have baited that out with no available mana, he could have gotten in for 7 damage in the air.
So he just pops off the Arbor Colossus, kills the dragon. Matthew's
in a situation where he's seeing far too many lands and not enough relevant cards. He played the Temple to scry away the Sylvan Caryatid and shows into another land. We know he has another land in his hand right now as well.
So it looks like Mono Green's back on top of this game here.
Very awkward situation. Very strange. Let's see. I think Evan's also in just as strange of a situation because with a monstrous Arbor Colossus attacking for 9, he still can't effectively trade with Matthew's creatures. Matthew could block, deal 10 damage, and Evan would have to choose, do I kill the Dragon Claw or do I kill 2 Coursers? He can't get 1 Courser and a Dragon Claw. And he draws the most relevant card. The most relevant card he could have seen.
Yeah, that devotion on the Colossus allowed him to get there. So, it looks like Mono Green is probably going to get this one as well, but let's see.
See, at this point with the Hornet Queens coming in, I don't think Evan should be afraid of anything. I think you attack with both Arbor Colossus at this point.
But
he's going to play it safer. Yeah. He's just going to attack with 1 Arbor Colossus. Matthew's taking his time here. He knows he's in a bad situation. He knows he's going to draw Wooded Foothills. He's not going to have a card to play this turn.
So he takes the...
He takes all 6 damage, and let's see what he draws. And
Man.
It's going to be another land. So the play here really should be to play the Wooded Foothills from his hand. It'll give him a shuffle of the deck, as well as gain him more life for the turn than the Shivan Reef would.
Right.
So instead of gaining 2, he's going to gain 3 out of this exchange.
Well, technically 4, but he spends 1 to crack it, so
absolutely.
A profit of 3 life.
Profit of 3 as opposed to a profit of 2. He's going to get to shuffle his deck and show another card, which at this point, not even an Anger of the Gods is going to save him, but it'll at least put the board state back to where it was.
Yeah, at least take out those that Hornet Queen.
I really don't think there's a turning point for Matthew here. He's got 2 Arbor Colossus he's staring down, so Storm Breath is totally worthless. Polykranos is only slightly valuable, and he shows us Sarkon, which
not really much of a help now either.
Not nearly as good as the Anger of the Gods would have been here. He's looking at this board state. He knows there's virtually no hope coming into this.
Pass.
Play here, he just passes. That's the line of play. And Evan's drawing more relevant cards now. He draws a Courser, not that he needs it at this point, but it can't hurt to try to solidify your board state even more. You've got Death Touch blockers, you've got 2 offensive Colossus. At this point, though, he should leave the open mana to Monstrous. And now he doesn't do it. If he had left himself the open mana, if he attacked with his 6/6 Colossus, he could at least save it from dying. So, in this situation, he should leave back the 6/6 Colossus for a blocker and attack with everything else. He's taking a long time to decide this. Seems like a really easy...
And I'm not sure why he didn't just nick those and make the other one monstrous, honestly, but...
Well, let's count it out here. He could have monstrous. He could have nicked those for a total of 10 mana.
10, yeah.
Plus his extra 2. He could have gone for 12. So he could have monstrous and played the Courser. That would be a misplay. See, this Colossus, this Colossus could have just survived this attack.
Yeah. Leaving 2 of the Hornet Queens back, and gonna trade with the Dragon Claw. Which, well, at least his last powerful card, Matthew's last powerful card, is going to be off the table.
Like I said, this that
was a pretty bad...
very clearly a misplay. Like I stated earlier, the mono-green deck is all about your sequencing.
It gets another land off there, gets another...
And he shows a second
Sarkhan.
Sarkhan.
Alright.
Doesn't give him a lot of value. He can't destroy the Arbor Colossus. He can't attack through... Even though Sarkhan's indestructible, Arbor Colossus can just block it. As so could the Death Touch token, although it wouldn't kill the Sarkhan, it's still a blocker. So he's going to kill something. He's going to burn for 4 damage.
And takes out the Queen.
Not a bad choice. If I had to choose in that trade, I would have shot either the Queen or the Courser.
Yeah.
So it's definitely... not a bad choice. Like we said, though, Evan could be in a much better board position here if it were it not for the sequencing mistake. Okay, Evan draws, and he plays a land off the top with the Courser. This is going to put him in an even more...
I think that's the first land he's actually drawn in
a
very long time, because he was on 4 lands pretty much the whole game from there.
He's been on 4 lands since Matthew angered.
Yeah.
So...
really pretty amazing how just that Nykthos is able to keep mono green in the game like this. Alright, gets the Voyaging Satyr.
That's precisely the reason why this deck is still good.
Yeah, Nykthos and Voyaging Satyr.
Now, real trouble here. He's going to be able to play that Court of Calling for a really, really large amount.
Right, he's just going to be able to grab another Queen or whatever he wants.
Whatever he wants, but in this situation I do think Hornet Queen is the choice to grab. He's still got this Arbor Colossus for a blocker. Matthew's not going to be able to get through with anything.
And so he flies over, hits the Sarkhan for 1, and gets in for 3.
And Matthew draws another Sarkhan, shows a Stormbreath Dragon. Still no value.
Really, that card's probably the strongest, one of the strongest cards in the deck. That's also the weakest cards game 2 against this deck. Because those just little 1/1s with Death Touch don't really... It's not too much of a threat to them at all.
Yeah, these Courser Kruphix are really keeping Matthew in the game, though. Gaining all this life with Death Touch tokens attacking. He's
plays the other Sarkhan.
He's not getting a huge amount of value, but it's keeping him at the same life.
You can shoot the Courser now if he wants to. I mean, he can do the dragon, but our Colossus can just block it, so that would be a bit of a waste.
He's considering that.
Yeah.
He realizes the Arbor Colossus is open. He decides to do the -3 effect.
To get the Courser. Does know that he does still know that he has the Court of Calling. So.
But at the same time...
But that gets his devotion down as well.
Yes, at the same time, lowers the devotion for the mono-green deck.
Yeah.
It's going to make the cord for a smaller amount. It won't help Matthew stay away from another Hornet Queen, though. Evan has plenty of mana.
Yeah, this is at this point it's just a matter of time for mono green. Looks like.
It looks like it, and unless Matthew can draw into another Anger of the Gods, this match is pretty much in mono green's favor.
Yeah, really, just an amazing demonstration of the resilience of mono green, able to mold a 5 twice, stay on 4 lands, and what it looks like to beat a deck with 2 courses of Krufix out at once. Pretty amazing demonstration of the deck there. There's the Anger, but it might be too late at this point.
See, but at the same time, showing this Anger of the Gods should put Evan in a different he should be in a different mindset now about how to place his Court of Calling. He should Court of Calling probably for an Arbor Colossus or a Paul Kranos now, rather than go for a Hornet Queen, which he knows will die with the Anger of the Gods.
And smacks down the Stormbreath Dragon.
And
once again.
with playing the Stormbreath Dragon should almost completely decide the line of play for Evan.
Making monsters now.
He's going to Monstrous.
In response.
Okay. Let's see how much mana Evan can produce for the mono green.
1, 2, 3.
He's going to make 5. Make 7, 8.
Core for 5.
That'll give him a cord for 5, which should be an Arbor Colossus. Unfortunately for Matthew, that gives no value to the Monstrous. He did all this in response to the Monstrous trigger, gives him no cards in hand, so he takes no damage from Stormbreath. And he does. He makes the play. He knows anything else will die to the Anger. A Hornet Queen would be irrelevant here. He goes to Arbor Colossus.
Again, pretty good, very solid plays on part of mono green. Just if he hadn't just made that sequencing error back there, this game would already be over, most likely.
Absolutely. Having one extra Arbor Colossus for the last 5 or 6 turns would have made all the difference.
And he's been a little bit too conservative with the Colossuses, I think.
Absolutely. He knows that this 9/9 Colossus can't die to even a Monstrous Stormbreath. There's no reason to be defensive with it.
Yeah.
And would you look at that? He cords into an Arbor Colossus and then draws a Hornet Queen. He makes 8 mana, and he's going to destroy the Stormbreath. And that should be the end of this game completely. He's got 18 damage within 2 creatures.
Yeah, definitely.
He's also going to be able to play straight into a Hornet Queen.
Did you play that Arbor Colossus?
18 damage coming across the table. That's a lot of damage to take. He's deciding. He changes his mind. We're still declaring attackers. He's just going to get in there with...
Yeah.
See, again, we're back to the point of being too conservative.
Right, there's really no reason why he shouldn't have swung with both of them. Matthew's practically tapped out.
Absolutely not. He knows that he's got an Anger of the Gods, which means the Elvish Mystic and the Voyaging Satyr will die if he plays it. So there's no reason to leave the Elvish Mystic and the Voyaging Satyr open. He should have tapped them for mana or attacked with them.
Right. Well, we know what happens now. Brings down Anger of the Gods to get rid of it, but it's still not gonna do anything for him right now.
It's the only valid choice he has, unfortunately. What Matthew doesn't know that we have seen, Evan has another Hornet Queen in his hand, which is going to, without a doubt, seal this victory. Matthew's showing nothing but a negate on the top. Evan knows it's free game. I can swing in. I can just do whatever I want right now. Make 6 mana, 7 mana.
For that Hornet.
There's the Hornet Queen. Again, one of the far most dangerous cards in Standard, Hornet Queen. And looks like he's going to hold the forest in his hand and bluff.
And finally just bashing in like he should have been with those with both of the Colossuses.
Don't really know how valuable holding that forest is. You can't bluff anything with 1 mana in that deck. There's no reason to just sit on it. again, mono green's about sequencing. Probably should have just played it onto the table. We know Matthew draws a negate. He's got nowhere to go. He's about to take 24 damage right here on the attacks.
Combat? Yeah. Oh. Yeah.
24 damage.
And there it is.
And that's the end of the
Mono
game.
green wins 2-0. Some misplays on part of Evan, but overall a great showing for mono green.